Hi y'all, welcome back to my shop here in North Georgia. It's a cool spring day, so I'm wearing my Ninja wood turning outfit on. This is what we're going to be working on today, a multi-axis, I think y'all can see that, a multi-axis twig pot. I think that's the politically correct term. Some folks call them weed pots. I did an earlier video on a more standard twig pot. If you didn't catch that, you might want to go back and watch that at the link shown here. Here's a few pictures of a few of these off-axis. I'm in preparation for a demonstration on turning twig pots for the Gwinnett woodworkers. So this video is kind of in preparation for that. Here's some sample twig pots that I've turned out of various woods. These are left-handed twig pots, but you know you can turn them easily into right-handed twig pots. Okay, pick your blank of wood. The size can vary from somewhere around 2.5 inches. This is just about 2.5 inches. From 2.5 to 3.5, and then I would make it a little bit longer. This is about 4.5 inches. First thing we're going to do is draw a line mark the center. And then because this is a round end, we're just going to bisect this at a 90-degree angle. Now, examine your wood carefully. This one has a slight crack here, and that makes a difference. We're going to want this on the top because as we're going to orient the neck so it'll fall in this area and it won't be a problem. But if we had it on the base, we had it on this end, it would be a problem. So meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and mark the bottom end center. Now, there's two ways that we're going to chuck this. I'm going to show you both ways. The one way that requires a normal size chuck and then a smaller chuck is because we're going to turn this. Let me give you an overview. We're going to turn this in two different axes. First, we're going to turn it on the center axis for the round part. Then we're going to have to have a way to hold it off center in order that we can drill the neck, and that's the only reason why we have to be able to mount this so one end is free, is so we can shape this and shape the inside and drill the hole. You could drill the hole in advance, but you'd have a hard time shaping this down. Now, one possibility, you could probably turn this all between centers if you shape this with a Dremel sanding, so that is an option. So the approach, this is one approach, using a smaller set of jaws and a normal set of jaws. And let me just clarify that if you're going to use two chucks, one for the primary axis, your normal jaws, make sure that you make that tenon deep enough to make this secondary for your parallel off-center axis for your smaller jaws, that those two, that depth will not bottom out in your jaws. Now for mine, that's about 7/16 of an inch, I believe. I'm sorry, about 9/16 of an inch. You may have to measure your jaws, but make sure it's the maximum length that will not bottom out, so it'll still allow you for close to a quarter of an inch for the smaller jaws to fit on that off-center, that parallel axis. It's going to be the jaw set. The approach that I'm going to use is we're going to make this the bottom because this is the top, as I said, because of this crack. We're going to so we're going to come out on this line right here. We're going to come out from the center approximately a half inch to 5/8 of an inch, depending on the size of the block. And I'm going to drill a hole here a half inch deep for a woodworm screw. And we're going to use the woodworm screw for mounting this smaller, for the off-axis, rather than using a smaller chuck. So let's do that. So I'm going to go ahead and drill this hole approximately a half to 5/8 inch from the center, using a drill bit appropriate for my woodworm screw. In my case, with a Nova, that's 5/16. So I'm going to mark that. I don't want to drill it more than 5/8 of an inch thick, and you'll see why shortly. So we'll just drill that. first thing we're going to do is turn this round between centers using some type of drive center. I'm using a step center, but any type you've got will work fine. Again, orienting the bottom, that's the one where we drill the hole in that center point. Bring up the tailstock for support. Make sure it clears. First thing we're going to do is round this between centers using a spindle roughing gouge. Although this is a spindle project, I'm using my face shield because there's always higher risk on multi-axis work. Anchor, bevel, cut. I'm turning the speed up just a bit. We're going to fast forward through this. You've seen me rough blanks before. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a tenon here for my standard 50 millimeter jaws. Then I'm going to finish rounding. I've got just a bit of a flat spot here. And I take it down just a bit, but not too far because I don't want to challenge my design. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mount this in a woodworm screw. Keep in mind that a woodworm screw does not do as well on end grain spindle projects as it does side grain. So we're going to have tailstock support for most of this operation. Make sure you orient your woodworm screw appropriately for your chuck. Pull it forward, tighten up, turn it, tighten it again. Now, because this sticks out approximately 3/4 of an inch, and we've only drilled this hole about 5/8 of an inch, it's going to bottom out, but that's fine because we're going to use a spacer because we didn't want to drill too deep and waste a lot of wood. Now, if we wanted to waste more wood, we could have drilled it deeper. Now we're just going to spin this on carefully. Alright, here's a little different view. Again, always use a little paraffin. Makes it a little easier to get out sometimes, a little easier to go on. You want to turn this till it's snug, but you don't want to turn it so hard that it will strip out the screws. Now, we're going to bring up the tailstock support. So that'll be insurance for this, and we're going to do a little bit of shaping here before we start drilling out. Now let's get a feel for where the base is going to be. We're going to part off, this is going to be the chuck, we're going to part off about here. That'll just about be the bottom. Should have done this when it was round. That'll give us a feel for where the bottom's going to be. And this might be toward the top. Okay, make sure you clear the tool rest. Get it as close as possible, but make sure it clears. Tailstock support, everything locked down. There's a small bowl gouge, 3/8 inch bowl gouge. pick this up on camera, but you can see a ghost image, so I can see where that neck is going to be. Now we're going to shape the top of the neck before we drill the hole, just to get a little concave going in there. For that I'm going to use my detail spindle gouge. That's the one with a very, very shallow flute. I don't know if y'all can see that. Sure. We're turning on center. Taking very, very light cuts. Just a bit of a chamfer. We're going to replace our live center with a Jacob's chuck. I use a 1/4 inch drill bit, but you could go up to something a little larger, maybe 5/16. And we don't want to drill through what's going to be the bottom. Let's get a pretty good idea. Generally you're going to drill about 3/8 inch, or at least a 1/4 inch from the bottom, whichever comes first. So in this case I can go all the way to here and be safe. And we're going to slow it down a little bit. Below 1,000 for this size drill bit. Just ease it in. Now green wood, when you drill it, it can get those shavings in there can swell up as they get hot and lock this in there, so be sure to clear it before it starts screaming at you. Go all the way down to the end of the drill bit. Always keep your hand on the Jacob's chuck as you withdraw it, because you don't want this thing pulled out. Okay, now I look at my design. I've got a flat area here I don't like, so I've got to take that down some. We're going to come back with that live center to give it support, because that screw chuck is not giving it a real strong hold at only about 1/2 inch. Again, make sure everything clears. And I can see I probably want to come back a little bit further here, make a little longer neck, increase the speed. I'm turning a lot of air. I'm getting it up to, maybe 1800. Slow cut, start. I'll flare this in just a bit. Okay, I think I like that shape. Now before we change this axis, we're going to go back and go on center axis and round this over, shape the bottom, put a parting cut. But before we do that, we have to sand here if you want to power sand, because you can't come back to it. So I'm going to do that off the lathe. Actually, I'll show you very carefully. I'm using 150 grit. Now I'm just going to ease this in. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and take this off and put it back into the 50mm jaws. Turn the spindle lock so I can use both hands. And again, if you have a longer piece and willing to sacrifice a little bit of wood, you could dispense with this and drill a larger hole, which, if you got the wood, is not a bad idea. So we take the spindle lock off, take that out, chuck this. Now we can bring it right up near the edge here. We don't have to worry about that off center. The off center is on inside here clearly. So now I'm going to just round this over very slightly. Can't do much. Just a little bit. I can catch some of this. Before I do that, I'm going to make a parting cut here with a 1/4 inch parting tool just so we can see where the bottom of this is going to be. We'll slow this down just a bit. I'm going to pull my tool rest back just a bit so I can come in here. Come back a 1/2 tool depth. Now I can get a feel for, now I can start the bottom shape and start rounding over a little bit on the top. And this is just pure spindle work. I'm going to use the spindle gouge. Come back here. I can just barely, I don't know if you can see it on the video, but I can just barely see the shadow line where I'm trying to pick up this right here, that I can't go very far because I can't bring this down lower than this taper. And I need to pick up this cut. Just flare it out. And I can help blend that in with a little sandpaper. Got a design choice. I can leave this hard edge, or I can sand that off with sandpaper. I think I'm just going to leave it and hand sand this part right here to blend it. I'm going to go ahead and bring this part down, and then we're going to finish parting it off with a thin saw. I'm going to take a thin parting tool and just kind of bring this in just a little bit toward the center and this will do a little better job than that other in terms of not tearing fibers. Discretion becomes the better part of valor, and we'll take this, we'll just saw this off. This flush cut saw comes in very handy. Okay, and we'll handle that with a on the drill press sander, and there we go.